Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. Hope everyone's doing good. It is Wednesday morning at about 10:13. So yeah, hope everyone's doing good. I've been posting videos. I've been setting them up as premieres just to kind of change things up. I think I don't know. Sometimes well, a lot of the times when you're posting shows and videos and content, it's really about the algorithm. And I know like it's a thing of maybe overexposure or this or that, but then you stop getting certain kinds of hits. But I haven't been posting on Facebook too much in a while. I feel like it does really help this channel, but and I know it's the algorithm thing, but things have really kind of slowed down as far as that goes. And I feel like at this point, it's not really worth it posting videos on Facebook when it comes to this channel. It does help, and I probably will. But I notice I'm not really getting any traction or posts at all, and it is quite a bit of work posting those videos and doing that. So I'm kind of taking a break. I kind of don't have the time to really do all of that. But this doing it this way is super fun. It's super easy, and it's a way more of a I don't know laid back kind of a thing. So but I'll go back to doing doing posts or sharing videos everywhere. But anyway, I the main thing for me with this whole film fanatic world or universe has or the main focus has been this channel. Just trying to upload a lot of content, a lot of videos, talk about a lot of movies that I love. Old and new films, revisiting films, subjects that are tied to films, directors, certain directors, composers, music, soundtracks, all those things. And just, all kinds of, issues. I've talked about, the streaming kind of phenomenon and going to the theater and what that's like, physical media, what have you. But lately, what I've been doing I've been on this big, interesting, and fun kick of going back and watching the Friday 13th franchise again, which is my all time favorite film, well, franchise in general, but without a doubt, when it comes to horror films, which is my favorite genre of all time, it is for me the cat's meow. It's the best, and I just can't get enough. I never get tired of it. So, and I don't know, I'm kind of a completionist. I think when it comes to certain things, I I have I own all of the Friday 13th movies. I own even the movies that are not necessarily tied in with the franchise, like it is and it isn't. But like I say, a film like they're more almost standalone films. But Jason X, which I actually really love that movie. I didn't like it when I first saw it, and it's one of the later ones, more recent ones. But even though it's been out for a long time, and it's super trashy. That movie is so trashy, but I kind of love that movie. It's got some really awful digital effects, but I don't know. I kind of like that movie. It's in some ways it's like just a classic shitty kind of exploitation movie, even though it's like a later, it came out in the early 2000s, I think. I did not really like that movie when I first saw it, but I actually really love that movie. And that movie is kind of it's is a weird little bastard, adopted child of the franchise. It's like it's not a lot of times it's not included in the movies, but and then also of course Freddy vs. Jason, which is I kind of think that movie is a masterpiece. One of the kind of best examples of like the ultimate payoff. So those two movies are definitely on kind of their own island, I think. And then also the reboot that came out, which was I believe it was the last official Friday 13th movie to come out. That was the Friday 13th, the reboot, and I have that on Blu-ray. I really love that movie. It's really really good. It's they did a great job with like kind of combining part two and like the final chapter. It has that kind of vibe. It's uh it's really great. And the other thing that's always surprising to me when I always remember but that movie, which was the last actual Friday 13th movie that came out, it was it's the biggest. That movie made more money than any other movie in the entire franchise. So it's pretty wild. And fast forward many years later, there hasn't been a new movie in years. So we'll see what happens now that apparently there's some legal issues that have been settled that were going on for years, copyright infringement, all kinds of things. Who owned the actual rights to the story of, or to the story of Friday 13th, and the who is entitled to royalties, and that was this big conflict between Victor Miller, the writer of the original franchise, the first movie, Friday 13th, and then also, of course, Sean Cunningham. I'm not really sure what the case has been over for a while, and they are supposedly going to be making this Friday 13th TV show, which I'm not really excited about. I want to see a movie, and there's talk of maybe something coming down the road, but it will be probably a couple of years or more. But I'm not going to wait around for it, but because there's so many movies in this franchise that you know for me, I've seen these movies so many freaking times that keep me entertained. So it always satisfies that need or desire. So today's show is going to be about my favorite Friday 13th movie of all time. And that, of course, is Friday 13th Part 4, The Final Chapter. This movie was... I always talk about, the feelings of nostalgia when it's tied to a film or a franchise like this. This film is kind of the epitome for me around that. It's got so many iconic things around it. I mean, actor wise, Crispin Glover. Well, I'm a huge Crispin Glover fan. He is so great in it. Corey Feldman. So Corey Feldman was 11 years old when he was in this movie. And my favorite thing about this movie is I love this incarnation of Jason Voorhees. I think he's the most brutal, the most menacing. He's just relentless in this movie. And of course, Jason Voorhees was played by Ted White, who I think for me is without a doubt the best Jason, or the best version of this iconic character, this iconic monster. Ted White rules. He passed away a few years ago. Rest in peace. He was in his 90s. But he brought a level of intensity that was kind of unparalleled, I think, for these movies. The other thing that is another reason why I've always felt this movie is the best in the franchise is it's a return or it's a return back from Tom Savini. And Tom Savini, just an absolute legend in the world of practical effects. He did all of the practical effects in the very first Friday 13th movie, and it's got some of the most some of the greatest kills ever. And also, I feel like Tom Savini as a makeup artist set the bar really, really high. And then he came back for part 4. And he did 2 of the movies in this, amazing franchise. And it's so it's got all those ingredients to it that you just that just make this movie so damn good. It's got such great atmosphere. I think it's really well shot. It's the cast is really good. It's it's a good story. It's one of the best. It's got some of the best kills I think in it. I think it's got one of the best kills of Jason Voorhees at the end, just iconic. And Tom Savini's masterful work is all over this movie. Tom Savini, of course, I should now that I think of it, it would probably be a good thing to talk about where I could do just a show on Tom Savini because there's just so many movies that he's been involved in. Amazing. I'll talk a little bit about Tom Savini, but like his career is just amazing. There was a period from like the late '70s to about the mid to late '80s. He was virtually doing almost every slasher movie that was coming out. I mean, he had such massively huge career at one point. He was like literally going from one film to the next. The first film he ever directed, or my favorite, I'll say my favorite movie that he has ever done, is The Burning. The Burning is one of the greatest slasher movies ever made. That movie is just so badass. It really pulls no punches. If you haven't seen The Burning, it's just incredible. It's one of the original old school slasher films. It's not one of those movies that's talked about enough like films obviously like My Bloody Valentine or Friday 13th franchise, the Halloween movies that came out around that time. It's a lot lesser known, but it's it's one of my all time favorite slasher movies. I did not see that movie when I was a kid. I saw that. That's a movie I kept hearing about for years, and I bought it last year on Blu-ray, and it's amazing. It's just incredible. And that film I believe was the first movie for Tom Savini. And the other movie that he's done that is my favorite slasher movie of all time is Maniac. He did the practical effects for that, and that movie is to me the most brutal slasher movie ever made. I love that movie. It's just so nasty and so raw. It's the best. It's the greatest. I really want to watch it again. I haven't actually watched it in a long time. But again, Tom Savini coming back to the franchise, to the Friday 13th franchise for chapter 4 for the final chapter of Friday the 13th. It's he just knocks it out of the park as far as I'm concerned. And it's got great direction, great cast, some great actors, and of course Ted White, the most the greatest incarnation, greatest version of Jason Voorhees that there is, hands down. And it's funny. Last night I found this really great interview on YouTube with Ted White a few years before he passed. And it's like an hour interview, and he really had just an incredible life, just an amazing story. Before he became an actor, he was a stuntman, and he worked with like John. He was John Wayne's stunt double, Clark Gable. He went on to have such a massive career, especially at first as a stuntman, a stunt double. He was a huge guy, menacing as all hell. But every interview I've seen with him, he's like really cool. He pulls no punches, but he's got all these amazing stories. And then he kind of moved into actually acting, and he worked with John Carpenter. He worked in so many films. Like his career is unbelievable. An amazing legacy really he's had. And he's probably most well known for the final chapter. That movie, the final chapter, is a movie that really always kind of terrified me as a kid. It always scared me. It was mainly centered around on on how just how relentless and terrifying that you know that Jason Voorhees' character was in this movie. Just he was at this whole other level of just being so incredibly intimidating and menacing. And as a kid, watching all of these movies, the final chapter was the movie I remember watching more than any other movie. I always watched that. If it was on, it was a movie that was always on cable on some kind of late night horror show. It was always on, it was syndicated on television. And if you watch it at a certain hour, usually late night, it wouldn't be cut. And usually, if it was shown on other networks or what have you during the day, there was an edited version. And it was also a movie that I would regularly rent or buy or rent on VHS. Just masterpiece. It's the greatest one in the franchise. So yeah, I think the thing that's unique about some of these movies, I think you can just watch these movies out of order. I actually think you can in a weird way, even though they do follow, for the most part, they do follow a specific kind of storyline. It gets a little bit dicey when you get in when you get further in, but for the most part, it's pretty consistent. But I think these movies have a way of, if you're going into it cold, they do a pretty good job with giving you some like backstory and some coordinates, in the beginning of the movie to kind of set you up as to what is happening. There's like and they do it in a pretty cool way. It's not like overt, like a recap, but they do a pretty good job with like showing you a few previous events or indicating a few previous events that happened in the film before or the films before. So, when you go into that current film that you're watching, it's pretty easy to understand what the hell's going on. And these movies for me, even though they're gory, goofy, ridiculous slasher movies, for me it's why I come back to it more and more. Why I come back to it every year is it's like I said in the show I did yesterday. It's like eating a giant bowl of macaroni and cheese on a rainy day. It's comfort food. So can't get enough. Part four. It came out in 1984, and so every year, pretty much, one of these movies was coming out. So, yeah, starting at 1980. So, and yeah, stay tuned for more shows coming up. I will. Like I said before, I'm a completionist. So now that I'm watching, I got a craving to watch Jason Lives, which I really love that movie. That movie's grown on me immensely. That's one of my favorite movies. It might be my second favorite, or almost tied to the final chapter, which is saying a lot. But ever since I watched that movie, I was like, well, okay, I got to go back, and now I'm in the place of like watching every Friday the 13th movie in the franchise itself, and then also those two other films I mentioned in the beginning of the show, Jason X and Jason vs. Freddy, which are their own somewhat separate films. They're not directly tied to the franchise. So, and then the remake. And so I own all of the movies. I don't own all of them on Blu-ray. Pretty much do. It would be great to get a couple more of them on Blu-ray. I love Jason Goes to Hell, which is another one. It is part of the franchise, but then it's not. That movie is just so ridiculous. But so stay tuned. There'll be more videos, and I'm gonna do another show. More shows coming on the rest of the films in this glorious franchise. And I've already done a lot of videos on these movies, but I just love them. So, and there's always new things to kind of think about, new things that, new ideas that I get, or new thoughts that I have. When I watch these movies again, sometimes new things that I notice. So, yeah, thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.